Hi, I'm Jace with RMUS, and in this video today, we're going to be diving down a mine in the middle of nowhere, down a very bumpy road. But I'm here with Jess from Gold Rush. So tell us kind of what do you guys do, and kind of what do we plan? Why are we here today?
Okay. So hi, Jessica with Gold Rush Expeditions. So what we do, we actually survey abandoned mines, and we decide if they have any mineral potential to make them valuable again to a future miner. So in this particular mine, we've actually identified a few veins that could be of value. And so with RMUS, we're actually going to go in, map these veins, right? I mean, that's kind of what we're doing.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to go in, map the veins, kind of get a nice 3D image of what the mine looks like. And
what really, then the other half of what we're doing here while we're going and mapping is we're going to go and see what there is to see. We're going to mark some points of special interest so that we can identify those in our data set, basically.
Okay.
So we're going to jump inside, and then let's see what there is to see.
Let's go.
All right, so now that we're inside the mine, we've got a couple things that we're going to talk about going through here. And this is kind of our first, we're actually not very deep, but this is our first kind of point of interest. So tell us about what we're looking at right here.
All right. So as you can see, we've marked this with a number 3. Number 3 is representing this vein that was followed. It's kind of like a dark gray, soft material, and you can clearly see kind of where it is and where it isn't. So that's exactly what this 3 here is standing for.
Right, and again, what we're seeing here is that actually this is the end of part of this, and then it continues down a little farther along, so we've marked these long. But you can also see even just this spot right here over to the ceiling and this side of the wall is completely different.
Completely different.
So what we want to do when we're pulling this data is we want to make these easily identifiable, and we'll be able to kind of extrapolate some information based on what we capture with the hover map. So this is point number 1. Let's go take a look at some of the other things that we thought are interesting.
Perfect.
All right, so now we're down a little bit farther in, and actually down a side here, and we'll see this in the data set later on, but we've come to kind of our other point of interest. Like we mentioned previously, just before, is how we had different colors of rock on each side, right? And part of what we saw on that side is iron on what would be the left side of the tunnel, or the right side of the tunnel, right? And we've noticed that continues. There's a lot of iron that you can see along this. So why is iron why are we so interested in iron?
Well, they say that gold rides an iron horse.
Right.
So iron is pretty popular when you're looking for gold because you a lot of times find them together. So we've actually gone through and marked where the iron kind of started and where it ended. So this is our end point right here.
Right. So again, that's what we saw in the previous shaft. Is there's shaft. Add it. I'm getting there. But that's what we saw previously in that kind of first area. Is there's a bunch of iron on this side, and we're noticing it continuing here. So we're kind of wondering if maybe it goes straight through this wall potentially. That's kind of what we're looking for. So
exactly.
Again, just another point of interest, and we're going to continue and take a look at some of the other stuff that we found interesting.
Yep, let's do it.
Cool.
So this is our last point of interest that we've marked out in here. We've marked it with number 5, as you can see.
Yeah, so talk about why did we mark this with a 5? What are we looking at here?
So what we're looking at is over here to my other side. This is a massive quartz vein. You don't usually see them in this massive of chunks. So that's exactly what we're looking at here. Gold is usually found with iron and quartz. So again, this is a huge point of interest. One thing that's going to be really interesting with the hover map is right here it says 498. Now this was written in carbide, so it's an older writing. But we don't know what it is in reference to. So it'll be interesting to get the data and compare it against this and see, is this the location in the mine? Is this where a sample was taken? We're not really sure, but we can use the data we're collecting today to know better about that.
Right, and then, so just to give our viewer a little more context, so the area we were just barely was right down this area right here, which is where we marked all that iron.
Right.
Right down here. So it's genuinely, I mean, it's right around the corner. We've got this large bit of quartz, which actually, if we look, follows right along down this direction. So that's where we just were with all the iron, and then what follows along this way.
Absolutely.
So that's going to be our endpoint, basically, of our number 5.
Yeah.
Right. And then other things that we're seeing in here, again, we got the 498, and then we've got core or samples.
Yep, these were most likely core samples. So somebody came back and sampled this. You've actually got quite a few back here. Now, these ones, the way that they're laid out, were probably not core samples. These are probably the back of dynamite holes. So they would drill in here, they would put their dynamite in, they'd run it all the way out, and then somebody would light it. And then they come in and it blows up, and then they just muck all of this out. So just with the location that these are, they were probably blast patterns.
Kind of a regular pattern.
Blast patterns, yep, that's what they're called. So.
Awesome.
Yep.
Well, cool. So we're going to run through, we're going to capture our data set, and then I'm really interested to see what we pull out of this data set.
I'm really excited to see. I think it's going to be really valuable to us.
Sweet.
Okay.
So let's get that data set, and then we're going to take a look at it.
Awesome. Let's do it.
All right, so now we're back from the middle of nowhere, and I've spent the last little bit basically taking our data sets. We actually had 6 different data sets that were pulled together, and we'll see this in just a minute. But I've been able to see this and kind of fiddle around with it, but you guys haven't yet.
Not yet. I'm
No.
really excited.
Not really excited to see
Right,
what's going
so
on.
we're seeing what we can see and what is going to be useful for you guys. So let's dive into it, take a look at the data.
Let's do it.
Cool. All right, so here is our data set from our top view. Again, as I mentioned before, this is actually 6 different data sets that we've merged together into a single set. So let's zoom in here a little bit and go down to, this is the area with the entrance to the adit that we were at. Excuse my driving momentarily. So we come down right here, we can see our base camp here with our van, us walking around a little bit, and there's the entrance to our adit. Then, again, we've got 6 different, we have 3 different flights and then 3 other basically handheld scans that we've done with this. But if we go underneath the mountain here, this is our adit. What are you guys seeing just based on this area right here?
Yeah, so I think what's valuable to us here, I mean, one, you're seeing the slope and the angles of how that, this drift work ties in with the mountain there. We're also being able to see some other contours, like pieces up here that you can see where there's other prospects that cut in, and
Potential other locations
other
Yep.
locations that
that
we
might
want
be
to
interesting.
look at, and that also gives us a very good indicator with where this adit and drift work is, that they were coming down the mountain chasing some sort of vein where you can see those little prospects.
Yeah, I mean, we've got 3 in a row here.
Yeah, boom, boom, boom. They came right down the mountain, and then they decided to cut into this adit at the bottom. Everything's in line.
I'm seeing potentially other ones. One right here, maybe one up there
It's possible.
in this
There-
corner here.
Yeah, there is a lot of little cuts up there, but it gives us the ability to see, hey, they weren't just randomly punching a hole on outcrops. There was veins that were being, looked at, and everything came in line to where they finally cut this at it and said, hey, let's put some work and time and effort in here. And I mean, that's invaluable data as its own, because when you're out there surveying it, that's hard to say. Do these 3 holes line up? Maybe they do when I'm standing in front of them, but
Right,
on a
right.
large map, do they actually pan out? And then
In a way, we almost have kind of a history of at least some kind of it. Well, hey, look at all this stuff that happened,
Right.
whether it went up or went down. But we have kind of an idea of this is
sure.
how much work actually happened at this place.
yeah, and the outside view too. You get that scope of the dump that's out there, and you can kind of see where it's laid out, and you can see it's in a wash. So you've got some that's been distributed, but you can also kind of get a feel for how much work has gone there as well, and to see that in that depth of scale with this unit is awesome. It's measurable. That is something that we can get a scope of how big this is, what the volume is of that, which also tells us how much other work we might be looking at, or how much of this dump has been lost and gone down the wash in the past 100 years.
Again, this is something that's valuable to you guys. Something that you're
100%.
looking for is, hey, let's look at the dump. How much of the dump is there?
Yeah. Has
Right.
some been taken off? Has it been processed? How much? And we'll pull assays of that, of what the value is here. but then we have an actual real volume number of here is exactly what's there, and then we can take that assay number and say, you know, quantify that of here's how much mineral you can expect to extract from that dump itself, which doesn't even touch the underground, you know, development at all.
Right, but you know, it's something that is quantifiable, that is valuable to you guys. You can put a number to it.
Again, yep.
You know, we have real world data that we're able to attach something to.
Yep, reproducible.
Right.
Anybody can take a look at it.
So, but continuing, let's go back underground here. Again, excuse my piloting briefly. But the other thing, and that we saw before that we were doing, was we were marking our points of interest. And the reason we did what we did with the white paint, it was actually kind of a white reflective type paint, the stuff they would use to mark for, you know, survey crews or digging crews or something like that. That's what it was. Is if we go in here, we go into the adit. This is really the entrance of it on this side. Those first spots that you see, I believe that first spot that we saw is this spot right here.
Yep.
That we're seeing right there, that that Jess and I were standing next to, right?
Yep, there's
So,
my
you
little
know,
bullseye.
You know what? So what's kind of standing out to you as far as what we're seeing here?
So this is kind of fun because if you look, this was where the dark rock was that we were trying to point out. And you can clearly see the defined dark rock. Look, there's actually the 2 points that you could see on that.
We're getting to the other side of the mountain here. Hold on. Got to get past it. Whew.
So you can actually see 2 of my marks on there. And that was marking the gray rock, if you remember correctly.
Yep.
And if you see the darker spots, this was all gray rock. And look, you can see that with the LiDAR as well. You can also see that it was number 3, that was all of those were labeled number 3 because we were looking at that dark rock. And you can clearly see
Yeah, I mean,
where that dark rock is.
And for those who don't know, I mean, basically what we're looking at here again is I've filtered this and we're visually representing this by intensity. So this red area is representing a different intensity on this rib versus this spine on the top here and the rib on this other side. We pointed out in the video, well, hold on just a moment. You know, we pointed out in the video the difference that we're going to see between this white, you know, that white rock on the spine and the rib on that, it would be the right side on the video, and the gray that we're seeing on this side. And if we kind of look at this kind of from above, we can kind of see almost this fault that it was following right there.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly. And that's what it looked like inside too.
So again, this is just another example of that kind of, you know, that real world, you know, now we have real data, something that, you know, we can't touch, but it makes it very real.
Yeah, it's not just, hey, we looked at it, we went inside, this is what we saw, here's a picture. You can actually see a visual representation here of exactly what was captured with that, you know, with the hover map, taking that LiDAR unit and actually, you know, some of the whites that you can see where quartz reflected, the darker colors where, you know, the light was absorbed by the iron, and yeah, it just makes it very
Tangible. Yeah,
Perfect.
I think tangible is a good word.
Tangible's a perfect
But
term.
but that's what we're seeing here. I mean, we're seeing contours and all that kind of stuff. I mean, you know,
Yeah.
again, it just makes it more real. So let's jump into the other side. This is one of the things that I think is actually most interesting. Where we were, this is back, you know, down this side right here. Wait for that to load. There we go. This is where we marked that last number 5. So tell us, hey Jess, tell us what are you seeing here? This is right at the end where we were by what was that rock?
The quartz.
The quartz.
The giant quartz vein. So we actually looked at this with some of the video that we took while we were there, and we were in that little drift that had the giant wall of quartz and then different iron-stained rocks in behind it. And you can actually clearly see in this data set where this white was specifically the quartz, and these little blotches are actually the darker rock that was inside of the quartz. And you can actually line these up exactly with the video of when we were in there.
I'll show this as a side-by-side.
Yeah, show this as a side-by-side because it's incredible. Like where you can see both. I mean, the same.
I mean, we can see the shape of the gray.
Yep.
That's inside of this, inside of this quartz vein that we're seeing here. I mean, it's 1-to-1.
Yeah, which is telling us that the intensity is different between the quartz and the darker rock.
Whatever that darker rock is.
Yeah.
Right? So again, kind of our idea for this is, you saw us in there. We're marking up some spots that we were interested in iron for obvious reasons. That's kind of our next step is, hey, let's find a way to even further quantify this data.
Yeah.
And we can pull a lot of information on this. I mean, we can pull area, and you guys can pull volume off of that. So
Now, we did drop this hover map down the shaft.
yes, let's fly over there.
Can we see that?
Yes, we can. Can we fly over there? So this was just on the opposite side. Let's give some context a little bit here. So the adit we're previously at is on this side right here. We basically drive down the wash, loop around and come to the other side, to this shaft over here.
Oh, look, you can see the truck.
There's the truck right there. That's right. So we'll pop down and kind of, this is where it gets interesting, is this underside right in here.
All right, so that's the two shafts.
Right.
You've got the one here that ended in water,
Yep,
And
that's
then-
this tall shaft right here.
right? And then this one here that we think may connect, and you were thinking this one might turn?
That's me personally. I'm just seeing as I look at this piece of data right here. Our hover map, if we can look at the trajectory file, but it gets down to about right here-ish. So, and you can see how this slopes. So as we dropped it, we can see if we come up to the top here, we dropped it right down this angle right here. So obviously with the way it slopes and we're dropping it down on a rope in a cage, we can only go down so far before it's just going to rest on the ground, right?
Right.
But I'm really extremely interested. I want to know, I need to know, where does this go? Because, we have, if there was something there, I mean, barring the idea that maybe it just ends right at that spot, we have a hole here,
Right.
which I think, to me, indicates that this shaft continues
And we know
along this way.
we know from looking at that there was concrete pads and stuff that was that was being used to extract something heavy from these shafts. The value that you can see in this larger shaft is you can actually see from the top some of the crushed up timbers, but
Sure,
we know
yeah.
there's water at the bottom.
Even getting
So-
right down into here, right?
Yeah, those are your timbers.
Yeah, you can see the
Come right
timbers
down into
all
here.
right in here. But we also know that we hit water down there, so that tells us as well, hey, this is, barring somebody coming in and pumping this, we're not going to get much more data out of this.
Mm-hmm.
So let's try and look at another spot versus, putting somebody on a rope and putting them down 100 feet. So
In a
that they
dangerous scenario.
in a dangerous scenario where they can just get dumped into water. I mean, that saves a lot of time for us, and the safety factor is huge.
Lots of time and lots of risk. I mean,
Yeah.
and it seems like that's the theme of what we do, is trying to take people out of harm's way,
Right?
basically, right?
And that's an ideal, for what we do, the scenario works really, really well because, you don't want to be down in water at 100 feet with a whole bunch of black widows and timbers over your head. You'd
Well,
like to
and-
know ahead of time what you're going into.
And something that someone hasn't been in for
Yeah, 100 years.
potentially
Yeah.
100 years,
100%.
right?
Yeah.
Yep.
A lot of interesting data there.
And just, again, continuing with what we had before, is that a prospect right there that was just right down the hill from us that we didn't notice?
Might be a little jump in there. That's what it appears to be. And,
I
there's
didn't even
another
notice
piece
that.
of
I mean,
that.
that's right on the hillside from where we were standing. It's right there.
Yeah, another piece of that is, even reviewing this data, it gives you a lot more to go back and look at. Maybe things that were obscured by bushes or trees that you weren't able to see, that you can say, okay, there's definitely something
I mean,
here that is worth going back and addressing.
Right. I mean, we're seeing this up here. We've got, I mean, just looking at this kind of from the underside gives you a whole different perspective, but a potential other shaft here, something potentially right there, maybe back here. Looks like that's a prospect right here, maybe.
It's possible.
I mean, and this was stuff that was residual. I mean, we captured this on our flyby.
Right.
We weren't really even planning on trying to find different things. I mean, it's possible these things could be nothing, but it's possible they could be something that, again, like you said, maybe they were obscured, we didn't notice.
Well, and the value here to like an exploration company that would purchase one of these properties from us is they can see, hey, let's go double check all these areas, see if there's something that was uncovered in these, take some chip samples, see what is there. But now they've got a map of exactly where all these little prospects and poke holes are at that they can go address. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of value there.
Oh, cool. So that was a look at the data. I mean, what's the overarching thing, the takeaway that you guys are getting from what we were able to accomplish down there?
From what I see, it takes there's nobody that's doing what we're doing to the level that we're doing. And that lets us take what we're doing to a whole different level in, recording and seeing, visualizing what we're seeing and keeping that data in a form, that is useful 50 years from now, even.
Right.
If you look down in the future, it's not just like, hey, Gold Rush shot some pictures and a little bit of video here. It's suddenly, here's a full 3D rendered model of exactly what this site looks like, because maybe it does take 10 or 20 years for somebody to decide they're going to go into a full operation.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, aside from a massive collapse, this is still going to look that way next week and next year. And
Yeah.
it's, the word that is thrown around a lot is a digital twin. We have again, I use that word again, that tangible, look at data that shows us basically a one-to-one of the real world, which we captured in, again, I mean, we did 6 different scans, but total scan time for this thing was maybe a little over an hour.
Yeah.
I mean, we honestly spent more time prepping to scan than we did actually physically scanning.
For sure.
We're able to, we haven't measured it, but basically your entire claim that you
Yeah.
guys have on this area, the entire area.
Well, and one thing that comes to mind too is like even for a city county that's looking to, backfill one of these sites because they want to protect, so the public aren't wandering in. If you've got this full rendering of everything underground, you're able to close that off and still have that valuable data that somebody else can take a look at without having.
Hey, what's behind that thing that we sealed 20
Exactly.
years ago?
Exactly.
What's back there again?
Because nobody keeps record of that right now. So.
Yeah, exactly. Again, I mean, anything else you can take away from this? I mean, this is one of my favorite data sets. We've done a couple, but this one just blows me away. Not because I did it, but because it's this really cool kind of vindication of some of the stuff that we've been looking at. We have a map that's one-to-one with the real area that took us almost no time at all to do, and is very satisfying to look at. And that what it looks like with a little more R&D, basically, we'll be able to pull a lot of information out of.
I was just going to say that. Like, I feel like we just touched the surface as to what data set we could get from this. Like, we just skimmed it. That's it. There's so much more possibility that this could be used for.
Right, and once we're able to quantify this data and really make something out of it, it's going to be something basically that you didn't have access to before.
Right.
Yeah.
Even
So
little
cool.
pieces just to touch on though, that quartz, like being able to see that's reflective is huge. And so, as we utilize this more and more and more, does that make it easier to map exactly what's in the workings? Hey, this is reflective, this is not. This is a rhyolite, this is a quartz, this is some sort of sedimentary rock that absorbs light. It's super cool.
Yeah, exactly. Again, a little more quantification. I think we're probably going to wind up looping back on this at some point to be like, hey, look how far we got with this piece of data, and look what we've done since then, basically.
Yeah.
So cool. That's a look at our data. Really, we just wanted to kind of give you a look at what we were able to do and what we were able to pull from it. So thanks for joining us on this video. Thanks to you guys for letting us tag along on our little adventure and pull out some cool data. So again, thanks everybody for joining us, and stay tuned for the next one.
I'm excited for our next adventure.
I know, right?